Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, and distinguished guests, it is an honor to address you today on a matter that strikes at the heart of governance, integrity, and the unyielding pursuit of justice in the face of systemic challenges. In a world where resources meant for the vulnerable often slip through the cracks of bureaucracy, we find stories that remind us of the fragility of trust and the power of innovative resolve. Consider a scenario where an entire convoy of vital supplies, intended to alleviate suffering in a drought-stricken region, disappears not under the cover of night through brute force, but in broad daylight through the subtle manipulation of documents and procedures. This narrative unfolds in a nation grappling with the dual burdens of scarcity and corruption, where the disappearance of these vehicles exposes a deeper rot within the very systems designed to protect and distribute aid. Imagine the scene: a warehouse stocked with emergency provisions, grains essential for feeding communities on the brink of famine. Overnight, 30 heavy-duty transports laden with these sacks vanish without a trace of violence, no shattered gates, no gunfire echoing in the distance, no frantic pursuits across dusty roads. Instead, the absence is marked by an eerie orderliness, seals intact, stamps authentic in appearance, and a handover report neatly inscribed with the word "delivered." To the untrained eye, it might seem like a logistical miracle, but to those attuned to the undercurrents of deceit, it signals a theft orchestrated not by outsiders wielding weapons, but by insiders armed with pens and protocols. This is no ordinary heist, it is a supply chain sabotage, where the culprits hide behind the veneer of legitimacy, turning the machinery of aid into a conduit for personal gain. The public outcry that follows such an event is predictable yet profound. Voices on the airwaves decry it as a failure of oversight, labeling it incompetence at best and outright betrayal at worst. Citizens, already weary from the harsh realities of hunger and economic strain, gather in murmurs and protests, questioning how their lifelines could evaporate so seamlessly. Officials, in turn, clamor for swift action, raids on suspected hideouts, interrogations of low-level operatives, and the pursuit of shadowy figures blamed for banditry. Yet, amid this clamor, a strategic mind emerges, viewing the incident not merely as a loss of material but as a litmus test for the integrity of the entire apparatus. This perspective shifts the focus from reactive punishment to proactive unraveling, recognizing that true theft occurs when legality itself becomes the getaway vehicle. To understand the depth of this deception, one must delve into the investigative process that ensues. The scrutiny begins with the basics, the dispatch ledger, a chronicle of movements that should trace every step from origin to destination. What emerges are anomalies that whisper of foul play, entries that align too perfectly, yet crumble under closer examination. The global positioning systems installed on the vehicles, meant to provide real-time tracking, reveal not failure but a deliberate dormancy. Signals switch to a mode that broadcasts only to a select, private receiver, evading public oversight. Delivery confirmations, stamped with official insignia, point to recipients who, upon verification, deny any receipt. Driver identifications, seemingly routine, belong to individuals who were nowhere near the scene, some deceased, others victims of identity theft, their credentials reported missing months prior. Further probing uncovers the web's architects, a transport subcontractor with illusory capabilities, its fleet insufficient for the task, and its board intertwined with phantom entities registered in distant jurisdictions. Financial trails lead to offshore accounts, where funds from inflated contracts mingle with legitimate revenues, laundering the proceeds of diversion. This is corruption not in its crude form, but refined, embedded in procurement bids rigged to favor insiders, dispatch orders rerouted under pretexts of security, and verification processes compromised by complicit auditors. The trucks did not vanish into thin air, they were redirected through a corridor of complicity, where each node in the chain profited from the illusion of compliance. In essence, the system was not breached, it was co-opted, transforming aid into a commodity traded on the black market of bureaucracy. Faced with this revelation, the response could have been conventional: a sweeping crackdown, mass detentions that might scatter the network like dust in the wind, allowing it to regroup in shadows. Instead, a more cunning approach is devised, a trap set not in darkness, but in the full glare of daylight, leveraging the perpetrator's own greed against them. The announcement comes swiftly: a new shipment of emergency provisions, larger and more urgent, destined for a district ravaged by unrelenting drought. This convoy is positioned as a high-value target, with whispers of special authorizations that promise lax inspections and premium resale opportunities. But beneath the surface lies the deception, sacks filled not with grain but with inert fillers calibrated to mimic weight and volume, each embedded with micro-trackers sewn into the fabric, invisible to casual inspection. The vehicles are equipped with dual-channel navigation systems, one overt and vulnerable to tampering, the other covert, relaying data through encrypted pathways impervious to interference. Seals are mirrored, their designs logged in advance on public registries, making duplication detectable. The authorization notes, fabricated to entice, bear subtle markers that betray forgery upon expert review. As the convoy rolls out, the trap springs into motion. A request for rerouting arrives, citing vague security threats, directing the trucks to a secluded compound masquerading as an agricultural facility. Here, the public signals fade in a contrived dead zone, but the hidden channels persist, pinpointing the location with precision. Observers, positioned discreetly, witness the transfer, loads shifted to unmarked vessels, documents exchanged with forged receipts claiming delivery to phantom sites. A coordinator arrives, stamps in hand, to certify the illusion. At this juncture, the encirclement is complete, exits sealed without fanfare, evidence captured in real time through audio and visual records. Arrests follow methodically, drivers unmasked as imposters, officials exposed as authorizers of the detour, and higher-ups linked to the shell operations apprehended with ledgers and devices in tow. The haul includes not just the decoy cargo but digital trails that unravel the broader syndicate, leading to frozen accounts and confiscated assets. This operation, while triumphant in its immediacy, serves as a catalyst for enduring transformation. The focus shifts from punishment to prevention, instituting reforms that fortify the aid distribution framework against future incursions. A public chain of custody emerges as the cornerstone, every shipment assigned a unique identifier, tethered to seals, vehicle registrations, personnel assignments, routes, and endpoints. Data is duplicated on independent servers, accessible for scrutiny, ensuring transparency without compromising security. Deliveries mandate dual affirmations, one from community representatives or health authorities on the ground, the other from impartial state overseers, with photographic evidence and electronic signatures uploaded instantaneously to the central ledger. Seals evolve into sophisticated tools, serialized and issued under lock and key, activated only upon registration, with mandatory imaging of their breakage at final destinations to close the loop. Fleet monitoring adopts mandatory dual-channel systems, where any signal suppression triggers an automatic alert, demanding on-site verification and eliminating blind spots. These measures extend beyond logistics, fostering a culture of accountability where citizens become active participants. Ledgers are publicized, inviting public audits, discrepancies can be flagged anonymously, with incentives for whistleblowers. Radio broadcasts disseminate shipment identifiers, empowering locals to track arrivals and report anomalies, turning passive recipients into vigilant guardians. Yet, no reform is without hurdles. Saboteurs attempt to fabricate confirmations, only to be thwarted by multi-factor authentication protocols that cross-verify against independent sources. Fatigue among overseers is addressed through rotational assignments, stipends for community verifiers, and streamlined triage for minor variances. False alarms, such as staged diversions meant to test the system, are traced back via embedded markers, deterring future attempts. In this way, the infrastructure not only withstands assaults but adapts, growing more resilient with each challenge. The broader implications of this episode resonate far beyond the borders of the affected region. It underscores a fundamental truth: corruption in aid systems does more than deprive the needy of sustenance, it erodes the social fabric, breeding cynicism and division. When resources vanish through legal loopholes, a society loses not just material wealth but its collective faith in institutions. This incident illustrates how such theft monetizes misery: diverted grains resold at inflated prices, funds siphoned to fuel political campaigns or personal empires, all while the vulnerable bear the brunt. It highlights the insidious nature of paper theft, where signatures, stamps, and reports serve as weapons more potent than any armament, because they cloak wrongdoing in the guise of propriety. In addressing this, the response exemplifies leadership that prioritizes systemic integrity over spectacle. By setting a trap that exposes the network without collateral damage, it demonstrates that justice can be precise and preventive. The ensuing reforms represent a paradigm shift, from opaque operations vulnerable to exploitation to transparent mechanisms that invite participation. This approach rebuilds trust incrementally, each verified delivery reinforces belief in the process, each flagged irregularity resolved strengthens communal bonds. It transforms aid from a top-down handout into a collaborative endeavor, where accountability is shared and benefits are equitably distributed. Moreover, this narrative offers lessons for global contexts. In nations worldwide, similar vulnerabilities plague humanitarian efforts, procurement cartels in conflict zones, ghost deliveries in disaster relief, and embezzlement in development projects. The daylight trap strategy reveals the efficacy of decoys and technology in unmasking these schemes, while the reforms advocate for blockchain-inspired ledgers and citizen oversight as universal safeguards. By making theft harder than honesty, as one might phrase it, such measures deter malfeasance at its root, ensuring that aid reaches its intended hands. Consider the ethical dimensions as well. At its core, this story is about the moral imperative to protect the defenseless. When systems fail, it is the children, the elderly, and the impoverished who suffer most, meals withheld, health compromised, futures dimmed. The leader's insistence on unraveling the plot without haste reflects a commitment to due process, avoiding the pitfalls of vigilantism that could undermine legitimacy. It affirms that true security lies not in walls or weapons, but in equitable structures that foster prosperity for all. Transitioning to the economic ramifications, the disappearance of such convoys exacerbates inequality. In agrarian societies reliant on aid during lean seasons, lost shipments mean inflated market prices, debt cycles for farmers, and migration pressures as families seek sustenance elsewhere. The trap's success, by recovering assets and disrupting networks, injects stability. Funds reclaimed can bolster local agriculture, investing in irrigation or seed banks to reduce future dependency. Reforms further stimulate efficiency, transparent tracking minimizes waste, dual verifications curb overreporting, and public involvement enhances resource allocation, directing aid where need is greatest. On a societal level, this event catalyzes dialogue about governance. It prompts reflection on how power structures enable or inhibit corruption, weak regulations invite abuse, while robust oversight deters it. The Public Ledger Initiative, for instance, democratizes information, empowering marginalized voices to hold authorities accountable. This participatory model counters elitism, bridging divides between urban centers and rural peripheries, fostering a sense of national unity. Internationally, the approach garners admiration and emulation. Donors, often wary of leakage in aid pipelines, find reassurance in verifiable systems, potentially increasing inflows. Regional bodies can adopt similar protocols for cross-border shipments, combating smuggling rings that span continents. The emphasis on technology, micro-trackers, encrypted channels, highlights the role of innovation in governance, blending traditional oversight with modern tools to create hybrid solutions resilient to evolving threats. Yet, one must acknowledge the human element. Behind the paperwork lie individuals, clerks tempted by bribes, officials coerced by superiors, intermediaries driven by survival. The response, while firm, incorporates rehabilitation, training programs for reformed participants, incentives for ethical conduct, and support for whistleblowers. This holistic view recognizes that corruption thrives in environments of desperation. Addressing root causes like poverty and inequality is as crucial as enforcement. In contemplating the psychological impact, the vanishing act sows doubt, but the trap restores agency. Communities, once passive victims, become proactive defenders, their vigilance a bulwark against recurrence. This empowerment ripples outward, inspiring civic engagement in other spheres, education, healthcare, infrastructure, where transparency yields similar dividends. As we extend this analysis, parallels emerge with historical precedents. Throughout time, leaders have confronted graft through ingenuity, ancient auditors in empires verifying granary stocks, medieval guilds enforcing trade standards. The daylight trap echoes these, adapting timeless principles to contemporary challenges. It reminds us that progress is not linear but iterative, requiring constant vigilance and adaptation. Furthermore, environmental considerations intertwine here. Droughts, exacerbated by climate shifts, amplify aid needs, diverted resources compound ecological strain, as communities overexploit depleted lands. Reforms that ensure timely delivery support sustainable practices, distributing drought-resistant seeds, promoting water conservation, aligning anti-corruption efforts with green initiatives. In the realm of policy, this incident advocates for integrated frameworks. Legislation mandating audits, international treaties on asset recovery, and partnerships with tech firms for tracking solutions form a multifaceted defense. Education plays a pivotal role, curricula incorporating ethics, civic duties instilling values from youth, while awareness campaigns demystify processes, reducing susceptibility to manipulation. The narrative also illuminates gender dynamics. In many contexts, women bear disproportionate aid burdens, managing households, queuing for distributions. Losses hit them hardest. Reforms that include female verifiers empower them, amplifying voices in decision-making. Econometrically, the cost-benefit analysis favors such interventions. Initial investments in trackers and ledgers yield exponential savings, reduced losses, enhanced donor confidence, stimulated growth. Models project that for every unit spent on transparency, multiples return in averted theft and productivity gains. Philosophically, this speaks to human nature's duality, capable of deceit yet redemption. The trap exploits greed but ultimately promotes virtue, illustrating that systems can nudge behavior toward the collective good. As we near conclusion, reflect on the transformative potential. From a single disappearance springs a movement toward incorruptibility, where light dispels shadows, and honesty becomes the norm. This story, though rooted in adversity, heralds hope that with resolve, ingenuity, and collaboration, even entrenched ills can be overcome. In closing, let us commit to these principles in our spheres, championing transparency, fostering accountability, and safeguarding the vulnerable. For in doing so, we not only prevent vanishings but build enduring legacies of trust and equity. Thank you.